I'd like to call the March 2nd, 2021 meeting of the Sylvan Township Board of Trustees to order. Can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
under
with
God,
liberty and justice for all.
indivisible, with justice and liberty for all. I have on the agenda presentation of the bills. Can we have a motion to present or pay the bills as presented?
I'll make a motion to present the bills as presented.
Second,
Any discussion on the bills? Dave Seitz at the Planning Commission meeting made it sound like Zoom meetings should all be roll call votes.
I think there's,
Huh? So I suspect he's right. He's done more homework than
yeah,
I have.
they are supposed to be.
They are supposed to be.
Okay. So we'll start with Branham,
Yes,
Brooks, yes. Kennedy,
Yes,
Kosick,
Yes,
Schultz.
Yes,
We've paid the bills. Public comment time. Mike Jurassic's got his hand up.
Just a quick question on the agenda. As the board knows, 2 of the board members of the Sewer Authority have resigned. That leaves us with only 2 members, which is not a quorum. I did not see any agenda item to review or appoint any board members to the Sewer Authority. Is that an item or not?
it's going to be official at the end of the month.
Dave, okay.
So yeah, we need to look for some people.
That leaves us with 2 weeks with nobody, not having 2 people signing checks. Thank you.
I see no other hands in the air. Up there it is. I was gonna say, for tradition's sake, it's Patrick. Unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dave. About the sewer board vacancies, I would like to help put out the notice to the Free Sylvan Group. And if I could get my hands on a copy of the letter of interest, I'd really like to attach that to the message. I think there are people out there that might want to volunteer. So that's one thing. Another thing is I understand that the open space ordinance is an item on the agenda tonight. It's a ways down there. I hope you get to it before midnight. But it's been a 2-year process for me, and I just want to thank everybody who's kind of stuck with the process during that time. And thank you for putting it back on the agenda after a 6-month hiatus or nearly 6 months. So I want to thank you about that. I'm not going to go into the whole spiel about why I think the ordinance is important, except to note that of all the ways of preserving land in this township, that's probably the one that costs the township the least. Township doesn't have to pay for anything. It's up to the developer to make the agreement, which is good because we're talking about the budget tonight too. And I understand the budget is showing a deficit, although the township does have quite a bit of money in the bank. So it's not like we don't have the money. We can definitely run a deficit budget. We should still ask ourselves, of course, for each item that we're thinking about spending money on, make sure we ask ourselves the question of how does this item benefit the residents? And how much does it benefit the residents? That's always the test, really. So that's all I have to say. Thanks again, everybody. And I look forward to probably a long meeting. But
Mike, I see your hand in the air.
Yep, just a quick question. This is in regards to the water tower bonds. Is there any opportunity to look at refinancing those to lower some of the costs? I just threw it out there, maybe for something to be looked at.
I've never even refinanced my house, let alone bonds.
Yeah.
So if anybody's an expert, raise your hand.
They've already been refinanced twice.
Oh, okay.
I don't think you can do it anymore.
So we can't go back and do it again?
No.
Okay, so I'd ask. Thanks.
Sure.
An exception for Patrick, reruns.
no, I just wanted to say that you'd have to look at the bond agreement itself to see if it can be refinanced. Some of them are non-callable and some of them are callable. If we don't know, we should check. That's all I wanted to say.
Any other hands in the air? Okay. Our consent agenda is essentially the same as it is every month. Could we see a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I so moved.
I have one correction, if we could, please. Down on the February 2 board meeting, right under Mary Alordi and Patrick Zieski's comment, there's "hey" rather than "they."
Say, it was
Right
after
below,
Mary.
right below
Uh-huh.
Patrick Zieski's in the second line, right about in the
Okay.
middle.
All right. Will you send me that, Rod, just so I make sure I get that right when I do the final of the minutes?
Yes, I
I
will.
think I know what you're saying.
Okay, Sandy moved the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Rod, a second.
Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Schultz,
Yes.
Kosick,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Brooks. Yes. Branham.
Yes.
Okay. Approval of the agenda as presented.
You have a correction too? Go ahead, Kathy.
I was gonna mention that we forgot to add the planning commission vacancy. Dawn Capeless's planning commission vacancy that the form says her term ends March 2021. And so if we don't fill that position, I believe there is a planning commission meeting later, and it's a bad idea to have an even number of people. So
Yeah.
we should, I would like to add, appointment to planning commission vacancy to the agenda.
Okay, I penciled it in as between item 11 and 12.
Okay.
Any other adjustments to the agenda?
I have one, more of a question, I guess. Usually at the bottom of the agenda, we have a second public comment, a board comments, and adjourn, and it's not there. Is there a reason?
You're right. Oh, just sloppiness.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to catch it before it got out there.
Was there 3 items? Public comment, board comment?
And adjourn.
Adjournment.
Okay, I don't know if we ever got a second on the agenda.
I don't
I
think. we
Sandy,
did because
I
we-
have in the
moved to
notes that
approve the
Sandy
agenda.
moved and Branham supported.
That was the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Okay,
any
that's
further
right.
discussion of the
Yep.
agenda?
Because we didn't get that far, Dave, because Kathy had comment and I had comment, so.
Right,
So I'll move to accept the agenda as presented or as corrected,
amended.
Second,
amended, okay?
second,
Any further discussion on the amended agenda? Branham,
Yes,
Brooks, yes. Kennedy,
Yes.
Kosick,
Yes.
Schultz,
yes,
Kathleen's Starlink internet service must be working pretty good. There's much less time delay. Okay. Resolution to approve fiscal year 2022 budget. Are we in the habit of reading all the whereases? Or do we just approve the resolution?
I wonder if we actually got these out of order. Should we be, if we're approving the fiscal budget, should we have the public hearing on the budget first? Should item 9 be in front of 7?
Yeah.
Karen is
yeah.
shaking her head, yeah.
I didn't
so-
notice that, but that's out of step.
We move the public hearing ahead of 7. So the public hearing is next. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on the budget? Yes, Patrick.
Well, I guess I have a question. There was a work session held, I don't know, about a couple of weeks ago on the budget. Have the results of that work session, a lot of things were suggested there. Have the results of that work session already gotten into the budget draft? Or do they have to be motioned as changes? How does that work?
There will be motions tonight covering those issues.
After the public hearing? Or,
Yes.
What the fuck are you doing? Wow.
Okay, I see no additional hands in the air. We'll close the public hearing and then move to the resolution to approve the fiscal year 22 budget. And again, I asked the question, do you want to hear all the whereases? If not, I'll move we approve the resolution for the fiscal year 22 budget. Is there a second? Sandy seconds.
I'll
Is
second.
there any further discussion on the fiscal year 22 budget?
Yeah, Kurt has some comments. I'm looking at the budget amendments, and I'm assuming this is what we discussed back a couple weeks ago when we had our working session on the budget. We've got some for the general fund, for website redevelopment. I'm good with that. I move that we add 10,000 to the general fund building maintenance for a basement door. I think we're good with that. I don't really understand the decreasing the general fund sextant salary, but I'm okay with it. I assume that we'll still have enough money to hire and pay a sextant when we need one. General fund code enforcement by $500, no issues with that. increase general fund landfill contract to 9,000. Is that the city of Chelsea? Okay. We've got 25,000 for engineering professional services. Good to see that in there. We can put $13,000 into the water fund for a rate study, but we're going to talk about that later on the agenda because I have some concerns about that. And then with the clerk, I've had some discussion with Kathleen Kennedy on this, and, you know, I understand the problem, and sort of my solution on this was, let's put Kathleen Kennedy at the same base salary as the supervisor and the treasurer, and then have a stipend per election. And Kathy and I had some discussion on that, some emails, and it looked like we were somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000. So, you know, I'd like to, what this is saying is that we move to increase it by 4,000 stipend. If I split the difference with Kathleen, it would be 2,500 per election. And the ninth item was general fund deputy treasurer. That we add, is that an increase? We're gonna, the funding for a deputy treasurer by 1,000?
I think it was 0, so I think we just put $1,000 in that line item.
Okay. So under additional discussion, those are my comments.
And I want to, you know, echo what Kurt said, and we talked about this. I think the idea was when, if there was an election stipend, then there wouldn't be that increased rate of pay, which was proposed, and I appreciate. So, you know, and I think it comes down to, you know, amount of hours worked, how many hours an election takes, what's our rate of pay? You know, we as elected officials, what do we make hourly? You know, we estimated it was 120 additional hours. Maybe that was this year in a pandemic. Maybe I could come down and say 100 hours per election. So then what is my hourly rate? How do I come to what is a fair assessment of those extra hours? So that's where I was feeling like, you know, $30 an hour feels like that's pretty fair. You know, I'm the election administrator. I'm the election official for Sylvan Township. So that's a lot of responsibility. And I think, you know, there's going to be a lot more scrutiny and things which I welcome into elections, you know, but it's not an easy task. So I think that, you know, 3,000 is less than what Colleen had recommended. I think that's how those hourly, you know, rate would work out for me. And that's what I would ask. And then the base salary coming down to what the supervisor and treasurer are.
Sandy, you had your hand in the air.
I did. Kurt, I thought that you had mentioned at the last meeting increasing the rate of pay for the trustees as well, and I don't see that on here.
It was in there when we did the work session.
Right,
Yeah.
and then it's not on this.
Well, and I think we have two things. We're going to need to do salary resolutions for the elected officials. And I think that's where we have the salary resolutions. And in fact, it probably was an oversight not to have them on tonight because we can't affect any salary changes until we get those resolutions voted on, is my understanding. Maybe Karen can give some, but I think that's what's going to, yeah.
So, yeah, so the pay rates and the budget are two different things. The pay rates, Kurt put in for everyone while he was the supervisor. They're in the draft budget that's under consideration tonight. Separately, resolutions have to be done actually authorizing the rate of pay for everybody. So tonight's just the budget. The reason why there's no budget amendment for the trustee salaries, Sandy, is because it's already in the proposed budget. So we don't need to do it again, right? So, but Kathy's stipend was the one that was not ironed out before we had finished the budget. And then also the deputy treasurer position was not budgeted for. So those are the two amendments.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, the motion is still to approve the 22 budget, fiscal year budget. Any further discussion? Branham,
Yes.
Brooks, yes. Kennedy,
Yes.
Kosick,
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes,
Okay,
So I'm sorry, Dave, how did we incorporate the amendments?
I just have a list of amendments that I was going to make as individual motions.
Okay,
So I would first move to add $7,000 to the general fund technology budget for website redevelopment. Sandy, let's make you the official seconder so we can keep this rolling smoothly.
second.
Is there any discussion on the amendment to the general fund technology budget? Schultz,
Yes,
Kosick,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Brooks, yes. Branham.
Yes.
The next motion is I move that we add $10,000 to the general fund building maintenance for basement door replacement and painting. Seconder? Sandy?
I'll
Second.
support that.
Any discussion on the building maintenance basement door replacement? Branham,
Yes.
Brooks, yes. Kennedy,
Yes.
Kosick,
Yes.
Schultz.
yes,
I move we decrease the general fund sexton salary by $1,000.
Second.
Any discussion on that amendment? Schultz,
yes,
Kosick,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Brooks, yes. Branham,
Yes.
I move, I should be saying, motion passed. I move we increase the general fund code enforcement by $500.
Second.
Rod seconds. Any discussion on the code fund enforcement budget item? Branham,
Yes.
Brooks, yes. Kennedy,
Yes.
Kosick,
Yes.
Schultz,
yes,
motion passed. I move we increase the general fund landfill budget by $9,666.
Kurt seconds.
Any discussion on the landfill budget?
Dave, did you mean $966?
I wrote down 9,666.
It's just 966.
Okay.
Sorry,
Uh,
966, $966.
I amend my motion to $966.
Second stands.
Any further discussion? Schultz,
yes,
Kosick,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Brooks, yes. Branham,
Yes.
motion passed. I move that we add $25,000 to the general fund DPW department for engineering professional services.
Kurt will second.
Any discussion? Branham,
Yes.
Brooks, yes. Kennedy,
Yes.
Kosick,
Yes.
Schultz,
yes,
motion passed. I move we add $13,000 to the water fund for a rate study.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on the rate study?
Since we're going to discuss this later in the agenda, can we do it at that point? Or you
Will
want
it
to have it in the
change the
budget? in
amount?
case-
Will it change the amount we adjust the budget by?
Okay, no further discussion on that then.
Okay, any further discussion on the
I'm
waterfront
just-
rate study?
I'm just feeling a little, I think we have a lot of things that we need to spend money on, and I'm not sure a rate study right now is the best, use of our money as we're looking at engineering things that we need to have. So I just want to say that right now, I know that it's something that we should do. I'm not sure how applicable it's going to be in our situation.
This is just to put it in the budget.
Yeah,
We don't have to do it.
right, that's
Uh,
true. Okay,
Well, though, later in the meeting, I have a motion to do it.
yes, no, I understand. I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, any further discussion of the budget amendment? Schultz,
Yes.
Kosick,
No,
Kennedy,
No,
Brooks, yes. Branham,
No.
motion failed. I move that we increase the general fund clerk by $4,000 stipend per election. And again, this is a budget adjustment. It doesn't mean we do it.
So what would
Any
be the
second?
total, Dave?
$4,000 per year, per election, which we don't know.
So
I
we have
assume-
to set an amount. We have to have some kind of amount. We can't have it ambiguous.
Okay, what's the likely election count for this year? 2?
we're not gonna, it won't be more than 3. We're not gonna have one in May. It could be August, it could be November, and I think March next year would still be in this fiscal year. So I think there's a possibility there could be 3 elections this fiscal year. I think that's what Sharon Township budgeted for when I looked at.
Okay, that would make it $12,000. A budget amendment. Any further discussion? Branham,
Wait, so I had Brooks made the motion? Is that
yes,
correct?
I don't remember who seconded, maybe nobody.
I don't know.
Motion dies for lack of a second.
well, are we trying to figure out if there was a second or not?
Yeah, I didn't have in my notes, there was a second. I know Dave made the motion and then we, talked about, so yeah, I didn't have anything in my notes.
Okay, so Kurt will second that.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion of the election stipend? Schultz,
Yes.
Kosick,
Yes,
Kennedy,
Yes, can I vote on mine?
Brooks,
Okay.
yes. Branham,
Yes.
motion carried. Move to add general fund deputy treasurer by $1,000.
Kurt will second.
Any discussion? Branham,
Yes.
Brooks, yes. Kennedy,
Yes,
Kosick,
Yes,
Schultz,
Yes.
motion passed. I've adjusted my agenda enough, I got to sort it out. But I think we're at the resolution to amend the fiscal year 21 budget. I move we pass the resolution to amend the fiscal year 21 budget.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Schultz,
Yes,
Kosick,
Yes.
Kennedy,
You're muted, Kathy.
you're muted,
Sorry,
Kathy.
yes.
Brooks, yes. Branham.
Yes.
Okay. That basically takes care of all our budget resolutions and amendments.
Well, don't we need to tonight also, will we be approving the budget then, which is the General Appropriations Act? Or are we going to be,
I think the General Appropriation Act
so,
Think they already voted on that, Kathy,
Yeah,
right before the
page-
okay,
amendment.
so that's what that
page
was before
15
that.
through
Okay,
16.
okay. Yep, okay, that makes sense. I'm with you.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we're back to the delinquent trust and agency accounts. Is there a second?
Kurt will second.
Any discussion of writing off? They're relatively small amounts,
Yes.
more trouble than they're worth.
Just a question here. Who's actually monitoring these trust and agency accounts?
So, Kurt, I trained Amanda, who's Kathy's new deputy, on what I used to do to monitor those. So then they can be monitored by staff and you're not paying a consultant to do that. So, so Amanda's been trained and she knows how to look at those. And then she's going to also be looking at improving the process to make sure all developers get statements about their activity.
Okay, then I'd just like to thank Amanda for stepping up and taking on that responsibility. I know I had it back in August and there's a lot of work there that needs to be done and it's important to the township. So
It is.
thank you for doing that.
You know, just shooting from the hip, I would have said the project manager would be monitoring those. But we could talk about that later.
You know, and we should also talk about the policy that we made. You know, I would love to sit down and have a discussion about these accounts. You know, Amanda's taking them on, but I think there's ways that we can improve it. And so, yeah,
Okay, we still have a motion before us to write
Mhm.
off the delinquent trust and agency accounts. Any further discussion? Rod,
No, I was going to second. I thought I didn't know that was a second yet.
I think Kurt already did.
Okay.
Mhm.
okay, Branham,
Yes.
Brooks, yes, Kennedy,
Yes.
Kosick,
Yes.
Schultz.
yes,
Okay, here's where I put in filling the planning commission vacancy that's
Oh,
opening
yeah.
up in March. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I think the planning commission appointments, David, are sort of like a supervisor makes the recommendation to the board and the board approves the recommendation. It's a little different, I think, than the others, but
Okay, I think you're right. I really haven't given it much thought. If I had to, again, shoot from the hip, it's the consensus from the board that I hear is that Don Kaplis is a very valuable member of that commission and should be reappointed.
Kurt will second that.
Any discussion? Schultz,
yes,
Kosick,
Yes.
Kennedy,
yes.
Brooks, yes. Branham,
Yes.
okay. Now we get more complicated. I move we retain Infrastructure Alternatives to perform a water system rate study. Do we have a second?
Um, The agenda item reads as IMEG, but you said infrastructure alternatives?
To perform a water system rate study.
He's on 12.
Yeah.
Um,
They gave us a proposal. It's in the packet. Yeah,
Mm,
I've read the proposal, but I didn't memorize it.
I'm trying to find where it is in the board packet. The one I
Um,
see is the IMEG,
It's
Right,
Page 21 and 22.
right?
just before the IMEG, Kurt.
Ah. Got it.
Now, this is a study that Woodhill has been advocating we do for years virtually.
Kurt will second this.
Any further discussion on the water system rate study?
Well,
Um,
I have a question here. We did not approve it, the money for the budget. So for this, so
So Kurt, under additional discussion here, one of the thing they have is the commodity charge, and that says ensure that the water usage rates are adequate. That to me is very ambiguous. If we took the total costs of the water system and divided it by the total number of customers, the water usage rate would be so high that everybody would leave the township if they had to pay that much for water. The rates are already way out of whack. So I'm not sure I understand what it is we're studying here, unless we were to say that Sylvan Township plans on continuing to subsidize the water system to the tune of $200,000 a year. If you did something like that, then you could do a water use, you could do a rate study on it. And then the other thing I'll add is I think it's really important that we use the format for a statement of work for engineering firms, where we sit down and discuss what exactly is it that we're asking them to do? What's the deliverable? What does the schedule look like? How much is it going to cost? A lot of these things, there's so many questions that I have in regards to this proposal that it makes it very difficult for me to approve it. I understand, and sure, all meter sizes are listed with appropriate charges. I don't think we have all that many different meter sizes. If you had a lot of industrial, commercial, residential, then you're probably talking a lot of different meter sizes. And I've seen other townships list all those different meter sizes. I don't know that that really applies to Sylvan Township at this point. So why would we spend a lot of money on that? The commodity charge, already talked about that. Unless you're going to put some kind of number, Sylvan Township is willing to subsidize it. The rate study is meaningless. It's going to give you a garbage number. Charges for special uses as filling a pool. I see no issues with that. Miscellaneous charges, turn on, turn off connection. I'm not sure. Well, connection charge, I'm assuming that's a turn on charge, or are we talking about the actual tap fee when we say connection charge, which to me means, for example, Venture Test Systems, VTS, we told them it'll cost them $5,000 to connect to the water system. So is this part of the study, is determining, is that $5,000 the correct charge? Meter change. So, I've got all these questions about it. that to me, some of these things may need to be done, but I just don't think this is the right approach. I think we need to have additional discussion with infrastructure alternatives to make sure we understand what the deliverables are. Because as worded, yeah, I'm confused.
And
Thanks.
the only good thing I can see coming out of this are the different meter sizes, because technically, legally, right now, we only have a 1-inch meter charge. We have a couple of 1.5-inch meter in that we did charge for at a higher rate. But if we're going to have things along Brown Drive, I think it's imperative that we do get those meter sizes so that they are appropriate for what we're doing. And the second thing is there's supposed to be a connection charge and a tap fee. We have called that $5,000 both, which is not true. And that's been a bone of contention for quite a while over getting a connection fee and the tap fee, because those are two totally different things. Because one is to tap into the pipe and the other is to turn it on.
I suspect infrastructure alternatives are well aware of all these issues. They know more about our water system than anybody else. And so I suspect where we might say we have far fewer meter sizes than other townships, that'll just mean they don't have to work as hard to complete the rate study. They know that.
And I know that Kent is aware of that. But some of these things in here, I agree with Kurt that we don't really need.
Yeah, so for example, here, one sentence says, this study will determine if adequate funds are generated on an annual basis to meet the future operations and repair/replacement costs. The answer to that is no, we don't need a study.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, but having that answer clearly stated in a professional engineer's report adds a little credibility.
Yeah, so again, my opinion is I would rather sit down with Bob Skull, the DPW, and infrastructure alternatives and really talk this thing through so that we understand what it is that we're asking them to do, and is it providing value to us?
Okay. I'll change my motion to convene a meeting as you've described to formulate a more detailed rate study request. Does that work for people?
I will second that. So the original motion's been taken off the table. It's been restated, and I will second that again.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion to develop a rate study request? Branham,
Yes.
Brooks, yes. Kennedy,
Yes.
Kosick,
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes,
Okay. Motion to retain IMEG as the township's consulting engineer.
Do you have a particular project that you're attaching to that motion?
No. I attached the letter to the packet tonight describing how I foresee using this consultant. And that's on page 20, or no, yeah, page 21, 22, 23 through 29, and 30 are all related to this. I got a call this afternoon that in a sense relates to this. Pam Burns called me and said she had had a conversation with Bob Hannafin, the Chelsea city manager, and that he was encouraged that we are planning to discuss water and sewer issues with Chelsea. Pam was thrilled by his encouragement, and I would like to have Ted Erickson involved in those discussions with us as our advisor.
That's a nice turnaround.
So are we waiting for a second?
No, we're in,
Okay, yeah. Darren, did Kurt second it? Kathleen?
Wait a minute. No, I hadn't seen, it was just the motion to retain. I didn't have a second down.
Second,
Okay, any further discussion on the motion to retain IMEG?
I still believe that this needs to be tied to a project, not just an umbrella.
Kurt?
Yeah, I will second that comment by Rod. Just, I mean, if you look through what's written there, as it says, based on our discussion, we understand the project to include board meeting attendance. I wouldn't see a lot of value to have Ted Erickson sit in on our board meetings unless we have a specific project in mind.
Or a specific subject. If we have a lot of questions and we invite him to discuss these issues with the board, that's appropriate. We don't have a specific project, but we want to sit down as a board and discuss with him.
That's why we need a specific project tied to this. Not just an umbrella approval. 'Cause
Yeah.
we did this before.
I've made the point before and I'll make it again. We don't do this with Rob Thal, our attorney.
Well, we also don't have 4 or 5 attorneys working for us. You have infrastructure alternatives on one, you have MCI on another project, and now you're talking about so you can't really mix engineers and legal professional services, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
We have a statement of work form that in my opinion, we should be using. If we want Ted Erickson to come in and talk about, do we want to tie, for example, do we want to tie the Sylvan and the city of Chelsea's water systems together? We should have a discussion about that, and we should create a statement of work so we understand what the scope is, what the schedule looks like, and what the budget will be. The contract that you have with IMEG here, I see no issues signing the contract, and Dave, you and I've had this discussion. What we really need to do is identify specific projects that we would like a professional engineer's opinion on, and then decide, do we want to move ahead with a project?
Correct. I
You
agree.
gave the example of a tie and developing a statement of work. Developing that statement of work with IMEG, I think would be valuable.
Yeah.
And having them as our consulting engineer, we could just call them up and say, hey, when can you get out here and we can develop this statement of work?
Right. And, again, the trade-off of having somebody, on retainer for special engineering projects, one of the trade-offs is they don't charge you to give you a budget number for a proposal. It's not a firm bid. How many hours do you think this is going to take and what would that cost us? And they give us a number, and then that's something that the board can make a decision on. Do they want to spend that?
Yes.
Spend
And
that
if we
amount?
give them the contract, they'll make sure they make their money back.
Right. What I'm afraid of is that we which is what we sort of do with legal right now, is we, just about anybody that wants makes a call to legal and we run up legal fees. We don't want to be in the same situation with an engineering firm. We want to have specific projects that we discuss with an engineering firm, my opinion. So I'm okay with signing a general contract to make it easy so that you can utilize Ted Erickson when you need him.
Right.
That makes sense.
That's
But it should be done through a statement of, if we're going to pay him money on the project, I'm sorry, somebody's breaking up quite a bit.
We've lost you, Dave.
I got dropped a few minutes ago too, so I missed about the last 3 minutes of conversation.
I'm sorry, Kathy, I wasn't watching.
That's okay.
What the bit, mainly what we still continued with was having a statement of work for Ted Erickson, not just a general umbrella.
Mhm.
And Dave is frozen out right now.
Mm,
For example, if you want to connect the Sylvan to the Chelsea system, one of the first things you have to do is identify what is the benefit to Sylvan Township. Do we really understand? From Bob Scull's perspective, he likes to have the flexibility in case something goes wrong with the system, so he can bring waters. He's an operator.
mhm.
But what's that worth? Is that worth 500,000 to build a system to give you that capability? Or, are we looking to do water sales to the city of Chelsea? Are they buying capacity on the water system? Or are they just, when they need water, then it'll be billed at a certain rate? Can we agree on a rate? Who's going to pay for, the infrastructure that's required? You got to have metering that can look at water going both directions.
Right.
So there are a lot of those kind of things that you really should have a discussion with Ted Erickson and develop that project on paper and identify all those things. What exactly is it you want Ted to do? And
all of the things you listed.
So now that you're back, I would support, what I'm wondering is, do we retain him as our engineer, and then as projects come forward, we have someone we can go to? I'm thinking particularly of the discussion at the Planning Commission meeting. We know we have some studies we need to do quickly over in that area. So if we already have someone, we get them under this umbrella, and then Kurt, I think, you do a good job with the scope of work, we can get that to him. I'm comfortable with that. Then we've got somebody who is not on retainer, but sort of there and available for us, because I really think we are going to have some things we really need to do quickly. So I would support this just to bring him on board, and then fine tune the requests and the, billable hours through a scope of work. So he's not just, making money while he's not doing anything for us, but he's there and he's our engineer when we need it, and we're going to need it quick.
100%, Kathy, I agree.
yeah, agree.
Yeah, and I think this just gives us an opportunity to move quickly. Any further discussion? This is a motion to retain IMEG as a consulting engineer. Schultz,
Yes.
Kosick,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Yes.
Brooks, yes. Branham,
Yes.
thank you. Resolution to approve the open space preservation ordinance. I move we approve the resolution to approve the resolution for an open space preservation ordinance. And that's pages 31 through essentially 36 of the board packet. Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion of the open space preservation ordinance?
I have a real problem with this one. Has this been taken to our attorney? Because we've already got one in place that came from the planning commission.
I don't think,
we got an email today from the attorney.
I didn't. I don't, well, the ordinance as presented to you tonight includes all the work that the planning commission did, 2 public hearings, extensive comments from Rob Thal. I'm unaware of any additional comments from Rob Thal. I just, 2 years of work, I think we should pass it. And then if we've got, find that it's inadequate or flawed, we can amend it.
But you can't do it by a resolution. This has to be an ordinance.
Yes, and an ordinance requires a resolution.
So Dave, as I stated in an email, if we make any significant changes, I believe is the way it's worded, to what the planning commission had sent to us, then we have to take it back to the planning commission.
Right.
And what you've sent had a version 3 attached to it. And I'm not sure what that version 3 is referring to. Is this what the planning commission submitted to the Board of Trustees? I don't think it is.
No.
I did send it to Rob Thal, and he did say that this version 3 would have to go back to the planning commission. So I will share that email with you. But this version as,
Yeah, I just added the version 3 so I could keep track, because I had probably 5 versions on my desk. And, trying to stay as true to the planning commission's recommendation, Rob Thal's recommendations. None of those were in a format that could be approved as an ordinance. They were all discussions. And so I incorporated all the features of those discussions into an ordinance I felt was functional.
Another issue that I have with this, though, is this could have been a work session with the board. You didn't do that. You incorporated a resident to do it, and you and him came up with this.
I felt the board had discussed it enough.
Well, it didn't get passed by the
Well,
board.
we all received the email from the attorney today. And they all looked through and forwarded the one that I got. But I think we need to look at what we got from the attorney before we can move forward, because he has some comments.
Okay, I'll withdraw the resolution and leave it to the board to continue the process. At this point, I see we're at public comment. Any hands in the air? Yes, Patrick. Patrick has to unmute.
I need to be unmuted too. Yeah, you knew I was going to raise my hand right after that item, probably. And what a convenient
Right.
time. I guess I want to clarify something about the text of that ordinance, just since it's public comment time. That's actually the result, that is actually based on Robert Thal's original text, but with modifications. Some of those modifications coming from the Planning Commission, some coming from my requests on top of that, and some coming from the discussion I had with David. There is a version of the document that I've had and sent to at least 2 people on the board that shows the original Robert Thal text in black, and then has red markup for all the changes that were made since then, all the proposed changes since then. So I don't know if that helps going forward. Again, I do want to thank everybody for taking up this issue again, though, and kind of bringing it seemingly back from the dead, because it never really got put to death. It was just wasn't, it just got dropped for a while. And I hope we do follow up on that lawyer's letter too. That's probably the right way to do it. Get his input. He's the expert on these things. So thanks again, everybody. And I just hope that it continues. I hope there's follow-up, because in September, when this was taken up, there were a couple of motions that were passed by the board, and they were inadequately followed up on. And that's why nearly 6 months have gone by since then. So seeing that it's in process now, seeing that the lawyer has written a letter to the board, makes me a lot more hopeful that it will be followed up on. So thanks again.
Any other comments from the public? Dan Russell.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not exactly sure what just happened with the open space ordinance thing, but what I just heard is kind of disturbing about how this ordinance was edited and updated and changed between the Planning Commission and tonight. And it was just about to get shoved through. And I think we should have a discussion about what just happened, so this doesn't happen again on other stuff. And I'll be looking forward to hearing about that maybe at the next board meeting. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Board of Commissioners comments.
Go ahead, Sandy.
Kurt was first.
Okay.
Ladies first.
I have 2 things. One, so at the last Planning Commission meeting, there, and all of you all were there, they would like to know what the sewer capacity or the water sewer capacity is to the area where the new development is going, the condos and the apartments. And it seems that like nobody knows really what the capacity in that area is. And it sounds like that is something that we should know, because there is still property in that area that can be developed. But we sort of need to know how much can happen.
Sandy, we have a statement of work we've created for that specific project. It's in Dave Brooks's hands, and we'll be getting with Ted Erickson to follow through with that.
Yay, that's pretty timely. The second thing I want to mention is Rod and I attended a webinar this week about municipal websites. And we haven't selected anybody yet, but it's not fallen off the table. It just takes forever to do anything. But I have a couple of questions that I want to put out to the residents in Sylvan Township. And if we can actually get them on the website, that would be terrific. And I would like them to email me personally at my trustee2@sylvan-township.org email address. I would like to know, how do you usually access the Sylvan Township website? Is it on a smartphone, or are you using a computer? And the other is, what would you like to have available to you on the website? I'm very interested in your answers, and we certainly, I certainly look forward to hearing from you. That's it from me.
Kurt?
I wanted to give an update on the Finney lawsuit. I think it's public information now that Washtenaw County is looking at creating a conservation district with that property. They actually break it into many parcels, some of which Washtenaw County is really interested in, and others that maybe don't really fall into their guidelines of approving funding to create a conservation district. The good news is that preliminarily the county does seem to be interested in doing this. There's a couple of things that we can do to help this, to move this along. This is all part of preserving open space. A Sylvan Board of Trustees resolution stating that we support this might help the county to, make the decision to go with this project. Also, if we can come up with some funding to contribute towards this conservation district, that is also something that will sway the county to take on this project maybe versus others. Corey Russell has offered to lead an effort to help raise funding for that. And as Corey is also going to forward to me all this information from the county, she'll get it to me in writing, and then I'll share that with Rob Thal to keep him updated on where we are with this lawsuit.
Nice.
Well, thank you.
That's all I have.
I'll just have one comment for Sandy, that I think that no matter what the website, it's imperative that it be mobile friendly.
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
It's imperative that the website, our website, is mobile friendly.
You're right. Yeah.
That's all I have.
Any other board comments? I would go back to the open space preservation ordinance. After all the work that's been put into this by all the people that have been involved, I'd like to keep moving it along. Would the board entertain a work session next week? I don't see a lot of heads nodding.
I'm happy to see what time would be convenient for everybody to meet next week.
I just look at Tuesday nights and say, okay, how about the 9th at 7 o'clock? Special meeting on open space preservation.
Will we, so there's been communication with the attorney, so there's stuff to review there, right? I mean, I want to make sure that we're making the most of our time too. Does the 9th make more sense than the 16th? Do we know that fall? I mean, I'm in favor of having more time to talk about things, but I also want to make sure that and I too want to move it along. I'm 100% with you there too, Mr. Brooks.
Maybe it might be better to just take what Rob Thal gave us today and give it back to the PC and let them work through it, because ultimately they're the ones that are going to have to make the recommendation to the board on it.
We have a recommendation from the PC. Do we really need a second one?
I think it needs to go back and let the PC take care of it, though. Yes. Just my opinion.
Okay, I move we refer the open space preservation ordinance to the planning commission.
Hold
Is
on
there a
second.
second?
Wait,
Pardon?
hold on a minute. When there's not I will write these down. I gotta write down the time that you're speaking. It's hard for me to do all this and participate, and people are speaking and I'm taking minutes. So you've got to give me a minute, Mr. Brooks. So your motion was what?
Refer the open space preservation ordinance to the planning commission.
Well,
Is there
I'm
a
thinking-
second?
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on referring the open space preservation ordinance to the planning commission? Kurt,
we,
Kurt was
Mr.
first.
Brooks, may,
Okay, we've already had this on the agenda and we've already took it off the agenda. Now we've just put it back on. I think a work session for the board is much more appropriate than just taking this version, whatever, this version 3, and getting it back to the planning commission. I don't want to dump on the planning commission. The planning commission already gave us their recommendation on what this ordinance should look like. And the board made the decision to not accept that as written by the planning commission and to go ahead and have discussions, work sessions, and come to agreement on what the board would like to change. And we haven't done that. We tried to. Cindy Jabara did a great job of trying to lead that effort. But we, the board, did not come to any kind of consensus of what we as a board felt needed to be changed. And again, if we make any changes that are considered to be major changes from what the planning commission presented to the board of trustees, it then has to, by law, go back to the planning commission for more, for their review and more public comment. So we need to understand what it is we, the board, want to do with this. And then we need to have Rob Thal weigh in on what we think the changes should be. And if he says those are substantial changes, then it goes back to the planning commission. And where we stand right now with this version 3 is Rob Thal is saying it would have to go back to the planning commission. Again, before we do that, I think we as a board should have a work session on it and we should talk through some of these things.
Okay.
When would you like to have that work session?
Next Tuesday at 7 works for me.
Me too.
Tuesday, March 9th at
are
7.
waiting until the 16th.
Or the 16th is fine.
Okay,
with me. Or we could just vote on what the planning commission gave to us and said, yeah, that's good. Good job. Approve it as presented to us by the planning commission. That is an option.
Yep,
Mhm.
if we could find it.
I'm sure I got it.
If we're-
Okay,
if we're
What are
gonna-
we saying? The 9th
we
or
have
the
a
16th?
consensus on either the 16th or the 19th or the 9th.
Well, you have a motion and you've had a second, and we're in additional discussion now. What are we doing with the motion that's on the table?
I forgot what the motion on the table is.
I
You
have
wanna
I
not-
think it was to refer it to the planning commission.
Yes,
Yes,
I'll withdraw my motion.
thank you.
If we're gonna
I'll
have,
make a motion that
Sooner.
we have a work session on the 9th.
You really don't need a motion for it. Let's just
set it,
mhm.
go for it.
my preference would be the 16th.
16th works for me.
Okay.
may I jump in here? This is Dawn Capeless. The 16th is a ZBA meeting. Would that be a problem? Can the board meet separate from the ZBA scheduled that evening?
not if I set it up.
So can anybody hear me? This is Carol. There is no ZBA meeting this month.
Oh,
Thank
there
you.
you go. Perfect.
Okay, is the consensus for the 16th?
I can do either date.
Kathleen?
Either's fine with me. This, if Sandy prefers the 16th, I'm okay with the 16th.
Okay.
Nice.
We
Whatever
will
anybody-
set in motion the necessary steps to have a special meeting on March 16th to discuss the Open Space Preservation Act. Any other comments from the board? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second,
Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? All in favor signify, well, let's do the roll call. Branham,
Yes.
Brooks, yes. Kennedy,
Yes.
Kosick,
Yes.
Schultz.
yes.
Thank you very much for your attention and focus.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Got to find my mouse.